Hi, and thank you for joining us. I'm Elizabeth Burden, your host for AZ Illustrated Arts. Tonight, I'll talk with two women about the power of documentary film and find out how the Tucson Cine Mexico Film Festival represents the current creative explosion happening in all genres of Mexican cinema. We'll meet Solvei, a world and Latin jazz singing sensation who is bringing her music to Tucson from Norway. And I'll talk with two veteran stage and screen actors about the joys of playing the Sunshine Boys. But first, today's top stories.
Arizona Attorney General Tom Horne is asking the U.S. Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals to step in and keep the Environmental Protection Agency from implementing new anti-haze pollution rules on 3 coal-fired power plants in Arizona. In the nearly 200-page brief, Horne says the rules are, quote, absurd. He also says upgrading the power stations to meet the standards would cost millions of dollars, which would then be passed along to electrical customers. Republican members of the legislature have chimed in with similar complaints, passing memorials or letters to Congress asking that the rules be struck down. U.S. Senators Flake and McCain also oppose the rules. Horne's suit addresses only the Coronado, Apache, and Cholla power plants, not the Navajo generating station near Page, which is subject to similar rules. City Council members in Bisbee are poised to approve a change in local law to okay civil unions, including those for same-sex couples. On Tuesday, the City Council voted unanimously, giving same-sex couples the same rights in the southern Arizona town as heterosexual married couples. If the proposal is given final approval, Bisbee will become the first city in the state to recognize same-sex couples. Tucson does have policies dealing with domestic partners. The Bisbee Town Council will take a final vote on the measure April 2nd. And tuition at Pima Community College will rise 3% in the fall semester. Arizona residents will pay $65 per credit hour. Out-of-state students will pay $330 for each credit next fall. PCC's Board of Governors approved the tuition increase, which is the smallest percentage raise in 6 years. The board also approved a 50-cent increase in the student services and technology fee. Officials at PCC say the cost of in-state tuition is the 3rd lowest in the state. And that's a look at tonight's headlines.
As an art form, documentary film is in a participatory age with easily accessible equipment, distribution via the web, and crowdsourced funding. Film festivals are also adapting. 2 festivals, Ambulante and Lesbian Looks, are collaborating with a third, Tucson Cine Mexico, to bring thought-provoking film to Tucson. Joining me now are Elena Fortes, director of Ambulante, and Beverly Seckinger, director of Lesbian Looks. Thank you both for joining us. So tell me a little bit about the film that you all are collaborating on, Mourir de Pied. Tell us about the film.
So this is a really fascinating, pretty new, 2012 Mexican documentary that chronicles the lives and relationships of a Mexican couple who are active in the Cuban Solidarity movement for many years and married. All this while, the main character, a guy who looked a lot like Che Guevara, actually, and then this individual had a transformative, moment, and transitioned to female in her maybe 40s, and the couple decided to stay together, and it's the story of, and also the protagonist has a lot of physical disabilities. So a story of like amazing courage, amazing devotion as a couple, and interesting politics.
Why did Ambulante want to collaborate on the presentation of this particular piece?
We've been collaborating with Cine Mexico for the presentation of the documentaries. It was a very, especially in the Mexican context, it was a very important documentary. It was only recently that same-sex marriage was approved only in one of the states, so it's sort of it set an important precedent for Mexico.
How does it fit into the other work that Ambulante does? Tell us a little bit about.
Well, we started in 2005. The festival was started by 2 actors, Gael Garcia Bernal and Diego Luna, and the vision behind the festival was sort of how to bring the stories to the places and the people that inspired those stories. in the documentaries, and how to open up spaces, not just for the screening of the films, but also to generate some sort of discussion around issues that perhaps weren't being confronted in the media or in politics.
What do you see as the connection between documentary film and social change? Either of you.
Can I say a word about Lesbian Looks in this context, actually, because our mission is like very much the same and began the same. So this is our 20th anniversary year of Lesbian Looks, and we started it as a small on-campus free film series to bring images to Tucsonans that would not otherwise be seen, that weren't in the mass media, and there was very little work at that time. And the amount of lesbian-themed media has really exploded over all these years for some of the reasons that you mentioned before and others. And the programming of the series has always been about collaboration with other issue areas, other communities, other constituencies to also raise public awareness and engender dialogue.
Well, and with that, we're going to have to encourage people to come out and see the films. I want to thank you both for joining me to talk a little bit about the collaboration that's going on. Morir de Pie and Tierra Brillante are two documentaries that are a part of this weekend's Tucson Cine Mexico Film Festival, organized by the Hansen Film Institute, which is an underwriter of Arizona Public Media. This year's festival is a collaboration involving groups on both sides of the border, including the Mexican consulate. Next, we'll get a taste for some of the other films that are in this year's lineup.
Mexican cinema has gained critical acclaim in recent years, and there's a new generation of young filmmakers from different regions in the country who are drastically changing how Mexicans see and represent themselves on screen.
It's a great opportunity for people here in Tucson to see films that otherwise they wouldn't have the opportunity to see, especially on the big screen.
Claudia Jimenez is program coordinator for Tucson Cine Mexico 2013. She says the festival, which runs 4 days on several screens throughout the city, is a premier film festival in the U.S. focusing entirely on the work of Mexican directors and producers.
Well, it's a great moment for Mexican cinema right now. We have so many talented filmmakers, and their work is just getting better and better every year, and it's getting really hard to make the decisions. We wish the festival was 2 weeks long to portray as many films as possible.
Jimenez says Tucson Cine Mexico features an eclectic collection of film genres.
We have political thriller, we have romantic comedy, we have drama, we have documentaries, we have shorts, we have horror, and almost all of the directors are going to be able to join us for a discussion after the screening, so that's really great.
Jimenez says several of this year's films delve into themes associated with indigenous culture. Included in the schedule is a panel discussion that examines how indigenous people in Mexico have been represented in Mexican film.
This year we have an emphasis on indigenous people, and more filmmakers are risking and making the decision of portraying indigenous people in their films and giving them the chance to tell their story.
That is something that is very important, not just for us in Mexico, but also something that impacts in Arizona.
Alfonso de Alba is deputy consul in Tucson. He says the films in this festival reveal the complex cultural narrative that is taking place in Mexico.
The variety of films we have is very diverse, and we have some films that, of course, are comedies and are feel-good movies, but we also have some very strong movies. And it's very important to show that, because every single country in the world has many facets, and so does Mexico, a country that sees both the beauty and a dark side, and showing that, representing that, is proof that our artistic community is mature enough to treat those subjects just like their counterparts all around the world, and we're very proud to be able to present that.
Dile a Chuy que quiero hablar con este chileno.
Sí, señor.
The films in Tucson Cine Mexico in many ways reveal a country that's coming to terms with itself, from its indigenous legacy and the cultural identity of a people to the political turmoil of the assassination of Luis Donaldo Colosio in 1994.
He was assassinated during his campaign, and that threw Mexico into turmoil because as the official party, it was expected that he would be the next president of Mexico. this movie has been controversial in showing the different facets that came to light years after the fact, and showing how this became not just an issue of an assassination, but also of the different circumstances that surrounded it and how that was dealt with in the aftermath. So it's definitely a very powerful movie, and showing it, I think, shows how we in Mexico have grown in our debate and how we're able to discuss these things in the public forum.
A discussion in a public forum. Viewed in this way, these films are an opportunity for audiences to better understand the many facets of our neighbors with whom we share a border, and to delve into a cultural dialogue. Again, Claudia Jimenez.
I think that a lot of people are going to be surprised to see how diverse Mexican cinema is. I think that when people think of Mexican cinema, they think of a movie about the border and deaths and immigration, but that's not the case. So it's really exciting to see that diversity that's being showcased in all the films.
Tucson Cine Mexico runs through the 24th. You can log on to azpm.org for more information.
In Jerusalem and the West Bank today, President Obama encouraged Palestinians and Israelis not to give up on peace.
Rockets fired from Gaza into Israel today underscore the challenges to peace efforts. Margaret Warner has the latest from Jerusalem.
Then, as the House agrees to a measure to avoid a government shutdown, we update the short and long-term budget battles.
Paul Solman looks at free trade through the eyes of a classic American brand getting wet in the global market.
We continue our series on how broadband technology is changing our lives. Tonight, a look at Chattanooga, Tennessee, home of the nation's fastest internet connections.
And Spencer Michaels has the story of photojournalists who risked their lives to tell the stories of Iraqis in the early days of the war.
As photographers, we're always looking to find ways to communicate the urgency of horrible drama in these situations.
And that's all ahead on tonight's NewsHour.
The writer and actress Tina Fey says she didn't really plan to morph into a romantic comedy star.
When they put up the sign-up sheet of who wants to star in what movie, a lot of times I get there late. I was like, oh, I want to sign up for Catwoman. And then Anne Hathaway had already signed up for it.
I'm Steve Inskeep. Tina Fey talks about her new movie Admission on the next morning edition from NPR News.
In many ways, the Southwest is a cultural crossroads, and the arts provide our map. Our next guests, vocalist Solvei and percussionist Will Klipman, play in the intersections, blending traditions to transcend boundaries. Solvei hails from Norway, with strong Latin, Native American, and Scottish roots. She is a household name in her own country, as well as in the Los Angeles music scene, her home since 2000. Solvei writes her own material and has produced 8 best-selling albums released on her own label, Royal Dancer Music. Will Klipman began playing his father's drums and his mother's piano at the age of 3 and has since mastered more than 100 percussion instruments. He is a Grammy nominee and a Tammy Award winner and has been inducted into the Tucson Musicians Museum. Thank you both for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Solvei, tell us about how you got into the music business. I understand that there were other performing arts that you engaged in before music.
Yes. I was a professional dancer, and I was in that field for about 8 years, and then my ankles gave out. It's a very tough life, and I had to do something else. And I grew up in a household of singers. Both my father and my mother were opera singers, so I grew up in the opera house. And it was a natural thing to kind of lead into singing, but not opera. I was very taken by jazz and world music, and growing up I heard all types of music, and it influenced me. So when I couldn't dance anymore, it was kind of a natural segue to go into singing.
So tell me how did you meet Solvei, and how did you begin working with her?
We met about 4 years ago in the context of a music licensing agreement, and decided it would be a great idea to try to collaborate. So Solvei came to Tucson, and we ended up doing an album together called Worlds Within, a vocal and percussion duo album. And from that, we continued to collaborate and do some shows together. And she began doing a show called Passion in LA. And at a certain point, just evolved beyond the band that she was working with there and asked me to recruit the best musicians in Tucson, which I subsequently did.
Will and I have a natural, intuitive energy between us. And the voice and the drum are this is very ancient sound, and because we started in a very improvisational way, it really developed into a very in-tune kind of collaboration where we're very comfortable with each other.
So, Will, tell me a little bit about how is Zuma Sol and how is a collaboration with Solvei different than other musical collaborations that you've been involved with, which are many?
Well, the music is different in that it covers a very broad palette of world music, jazz, Latin-influenced things, and Solvei's original kind of trance groove compositions. And it's also different in that these musicians have never worked together as an ensemble, and I'm really thrilled to be working with Larry and Fernando for the first time. Amo and I have a lot of history, so that was a very comfortable connection as a rhythm section. But it's just a very fresh approach, and of course Solvei is kind of a force of nature, so that's new and fun.
So you talked about world Latin jazz. Solvei, how would you describe or categorize your music? Is it all of those? Is it none of those? Is it a combination?
It is all of it. And you know, in today's music business, you're kind of forced into categorizing things. And my music is not in a particular category. That's why stations like NPR, KPFK, all these different stations are wonderful to my music because they're willing to do things outside of the commercial square box. And I really just draw from an incredible love for the Latin rhythms, and I'm very fascinated by the Arabic, Spanish combination. And the native music is always like a deep, deep anchor in me. And I draw from it, from everything. It's just, I wouldn't categorize it.
Can you tell us a little bit about projects that you're working on now?
Well, right now we've been very busy getting this Solvei and Zuma Sol up and running, which I'm very excited about. I also have a trio in Norway that I work with, that I sometimes tour with as a guest artist, and we go to Paris, we go to Rome, and we do different things also in Norway when I'm there. I've been working on an album, excuse my English sometimes, called Ancient Voices, which has been recorded different places. And it mixes the Norwegian traditional sounds with drums, different drummer. And those are the projects that I'm focusing on at this very moment.
Well, I want to thank you both for joining me for an interview, and Solvei and Zuma Sol will perform for us later in the show. Neil Simon is best known for his unique mix of humor and heart. From The Odd Couple to his autobiographical plays like Brighton Beach Memoirs, Simon writes about men and women who often must learn how to love themselves before they can love one another. One of Simon's best-loved plays is The Sunshine Boys, which will be presented by the Arizona Theater Company throughout March. Joining me to talk about the play are actors David Green and Peter Van Norden. Peter, David, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
How much do you think The Sunshine Boys is influenced by Neil Simon's own background in comedy and the many performers he knew personally?
All of it.
Yeah, somewhere around 100%.
Yeah.
How so?
Well, because he wrote for Caesar, and he wrote, I mean, his sensibility, he grew up when a lot of these comic teams and a lot of the comic persona around were in their heydays. I mean, the list of names is very, very long, and that's what he grew up with, that's what he knew, and that's what he, I think, honors in the play that we're doing.
He says that he wanted to write a play about partners. And he first wrote a play. This play was first written about business partners. And he said, no, it didn't quite gel for him, didn't quite work. And then he wrote it something else, and he never said about some other partners.
He wouldn't tell anybody.
He didn't say what it was.
was.
And then he finally said, write what you know about. And he wrote about two vaudevillians, because that's what he grew up with. And, you know, having written for Sid Caesar with all those famous writers, Mel Brooks and Woody Allen and all those people in that room, and his brother, Danny, that's the world that he knew.
So this play was originally produced in 1972. Why do you think it still works as a comedy?
It's really funny. And comedy is timeless. It's a very funny play, and he's a genius at comedic structure. Nobody writes comedic structure the way
And what
Neil
we're
Simon
doing
does.
is we're trying to take all that out.
Well, you are.
Yeah, I am working very hard.
And you're doing very well at it.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. No, but it's true. It plays now as a little bit more of a period piece, but because it does take place in the 70s, so we're going back to the 70s, and even further because in the play we do one of the classic sketches that he based on one that a team called Smith and Dale did, and those clothes are even funnier.
What attracts you to the characters that you portray?
Well, for me, Willie Clark, there's a heartbreak to Willie that I find very, very appealing, actually. You know, he's estranged from this man. One of the things that makes the play timeless is it's about friendship, and it's about forgiveness, and it's about how you deal with, it's almost like a marriage. It really is almost like a marriage and they've been estranged for 11 years. And there's a real sadness underneath all this comedy about losing his best friend and trying somehow to reconnect when they're older, you know. And that's very appealing, and I think the audience is what do I want to say? The audience is, they get that, they understand that, they react to that, you know.
And David?
What?
What attracts you to the character that you portray?
Oh, I forgot the question. Actually, I love Al. I love Al Lewis because he got to a point in his career and he said, "That's it, I'm done," and he left. And now he realizes how much he misses it, and because of some circumstance that arise, they want us to get back together as a team, which I would really like to do because my grandchildren never got to see any of this stuff, and he doesn't want to do because he still hates me because I walked out on him. And therein lies the tale of how do these two people get, and if they ever will, get back together again. And the progress of the play is, but Al he's a wonderful character because Willie has a very up-tempo pace. He's a fast-talking, and Al is kind of measured. Al is just kind of, let me set the joke up, you knock it down, and then you can set one up, and I'll knock it down. And they play together as if they've been playing for years, which they have. They've worked 43 years together.
How did the two of you go about building a rapport similar to the one that your characters have, even though this is the first time you've worked together?
Yeah,
it's impossible
I
with
don't
him.
With him. I
just
try
can't
not
be
to pay
done.
any attention to him. I don't listen to him. I don't talk to him. He throws me, actually.
I had to put up with riding over here in the same car with him. It was just awful.
You're walking back, I'll tell you that.
In the snow, he's going to make me walk back. This is typical.
No, it's been quite a lovely experience. We have so many people, although we've never worked together, we know so many people in common from show business. David's in New York and I'm in LA, but we have this massive crossover of people that we know and respect. And
I like Peter immensely, obviously. And interestingly enough, we studied with the same master acting teacher when we were younger. I'm a bit older than Peter is. A lot older. I'm a lot older than, that's funny.
Arizona Theater Company presents David Green and Peter Van Norden in The Sunshine Boys for one more weekend at the Temple of Music and Art in Tucson, after which the production will travel to Phoenix. We have more information and an exclusive scene from the play online at azpm.org. When Solvei decided to bring her music to Tucson, she started by recruiting a band of seasoned local musicians. Here now is Te Recuerdo, performed by Solvei with Zuma Sol, guitarist Fernando Romero, keyboardist Larry Redhouse, bassist Amo Chip, and percussionist Will Clipman.
La boina gris y un corazón en calma otoño giraban en tu alma, apegada a mis brazos como una enredadera. Las hojas recogían tu voz lenta y en calma. Hoguera de estupor en que mi ser ardía, dulce azul azul, torcido sobre mi alma. Tu recuerdo es de luz, de humo de estanque en calma, hojas secas de otoño giraban en tu alma. Siento viajar tus ojos en el distante otoño, boina gris, voz de pájaro y corazón de casa. Hacia donde me graban mis profundos anhelos y caen mis besos alegres como brasas. Tu recuerdo es de luz, de humo de estanque en calma, hojas secas de otoño giraban en tu alma. I remember you as you were. I remember you as you were. I remember you as you were.
Solvei and Zuma Sol will be performing in Tucson at Monterey Court on Saturday, March 23rd. That's our show for tonight. To post a comment on any of these stories or to keep up with the latest news, visit our website, azpm.org. I'm Elizabeth Burden. Thank you so much for watching.